Morning, lovelies. Welcome back. Thank you for your lovely comments as always. Thought we'd have another chat, Tuesday morning chat. I wanted to just respond to, I have replied, but I just wanted to reiterate. I had a comment from a lovely follower who said that they'd come onto my channel and they couldn't find any of my old videos, and please don't delete them because they're lovely to look back on and everything else. And I felt really guilty, but I think the older I've got, the more I kind of look forward rather than back. And I think I said in another video, by the way, I'm going to put makeup on and I'll just tell you when things are PR, so you know. I'm not going to talk about the product separately, but I'll tell you when things are PR. So Maybelline Grippy Primer, PR. Accidental PR. It's a long story. Anyway, so yeah, sort of last year, as you know, it was a bit of a weird year and it all felt a bit strange and it was very emotional, and it just made me look at things and realise how unimportant a lot of things were and are. And I was looking at old videos and thinking, well, that brand doesn't even exist anymore. That product I haven't used for 10 years. And actually, I don't really have a connection, you know, with any of them, to be honest. You know, I sort of looked and thought, yeah, you know, it's done and dusted. So I'm afraid I did delete them. They are gone. You know, I sort of, 10 years ago, I was a different person. You know, it's what it is. So I am sorry if you have found comfort in watching a lot of my old videos and things like that. There's just so many, and also they take up a lot of space, as in storage space. And I just really wanted a refresh. I never rewatch things. And it just seemed pointless that they were there. And then, of course, now I've deleted them, somebody got a lot from them, so I am really, really sorry, but hopefully the stuff that's relevant now makes up for that. So I just wanted to clear that up. Coffee needed. And now we're going to talk about Wuthering Heights. Gail is running for cover because is there a rant coming? Kind of. Now, I haven't seen the new film. It's not out until Valentine's Day. But there are clips of it, which I haven't watched. I have watched interviews with the cast, particularly Emerald Fennell, who obviously wrote and directed it and was inspired by Wuthering Heights, and clearly keeps saying it is not a direct copy of the story. It is her take on it and how she feels about it, and it's her, you know, says she's got, you know, obviously a huge connection to it, and this is sort of her, I suppose it's in, you know, how can I describe it? It's sometimes how we want the stories to really be. So, for instance, you know, Gone with the Wind, a lot of people would like Rhett Butler not to walk out on Scarlet. For me, it's most definitely The Remains of the Day, which with Anthony Hopkins and Emma Thompson. I also love the book, but I never ever want it to end the way it does. It absolutely, Craig is so fed up of me saying it, I never ever want it to end the way it does. I want the characters to get together. It absolutely rips my heart completely apart. So it's kind of her take on Wuthering Heights and what ideally she would like it to be and what it is in her head, I feel. The difficulty being that obviously there are a lot of restrictions when you make a film. The one thing I just kind of don't quite grasp is one of the most influential characters in Wuthering Heights is Hindley, and Hindley is a brute and a bully and is part of the reason Heathcliff is the way he is, and he's not in it. And obviously I haven't seen the film, so how they're going to get across Heathcliff's sort of upbringing and treatment and his experiences coming into this family, I actually don't know. I need to take my jumper off because I'm of an age where, you know, I'm having a moment. Oof, that's better. So that I really do. I am always concerned when it's such an important character in a story, as to once you sort of do that and take away the essence of the story, where do you go with it? You know, do you pass it on to other characters? Which, okay, fine. But anyway, so Hindley's not in it, which, you know, fine. If you haven't read the book, it's not going to make any difference, is it? But the other problem is that people have this idea it's a romantic story. Now, Hollywood is partly to blame for that. So Hollywood obviously made a film version with Merle Oberon and Laurence Olivier. Bearing in mind that Merle Oberon was a woman of colour, which was hidden. You know, they used to use makeup on her, so she didn't look a woman of colour, but she was a woman of colour. Anyway, they did their version of it and made it very, you know, romantic and sweeping skirts, and that's what sort of changed people's perception of it. So people do have this, oh, it's so romantic. And I think when you first read it, when I first read it as, I don't know, teenager, you kind of don't grasp all the themes that are running through it. And you look at this brute of a man and this girl, and, you know, when you are completely innocent of things, the weirdest things can come across as romantic, which is quite dangerous. But as you get older, and the more often you read it, the age I am now, for me, Wuthering Heights is, I mean, it's the most amazing read, obviously. And being a Yorkshire lass, it feels like it's in my blood in a way. I don't want to sound pretentious, but it does. But it's the most brutish, bullying, psychopathic, narcissistic. The characters generally are all appalling. We have an unreliable narrator, which is nothing new in life, let's be honest. Jane Austen was the one who introduced an unreliable narrator. And, you know, Emily Bronte cleverly carried that baton, as did Agatha Christie. So, you know, it's just the most brutish novel. It's like a piece of music that absolutely just crashes through your body and everything's on edge. And that's Wuthering Heights for me now, as the woman I am and the age I am. But the beautiful thing is people will get different things from it. That's the whole point. But my other issue is this argument about Heathcliff and the casting of Jacob Elordi. And Heathcliff, obviously, in the book, is mentioned as dark, gypsy-like. He's also described as pale as the wall behind him. But I think that's more an expression of his, you know, what he's experiencing as that at that time. You know, it's not the colour he is, it's his emotion at the time. But he is described as dark. But I keep reading people saying, oh, for goodness sake, let's think when Emily Bronte was alive, she wouldn't have come across anybody of colour, gypsy, everything else. And that's not true. First of all, Emily Bronte travelled. She travelled with Charlotte to Brussels. She will have come across various people from various backgrounds. Also, Romany gypsies were part of life across the country. Yorkshire, the moors, a lot of them lived on the moors, a lot of them would have travelled through the towns and countries. She will have come across Romany gypsies probably when she was on the moors, in the town itself. Of course she came across people. I mean, it's just, I just find it completely bizarre. The other thing is that her father was also Irish, so he will have also discussed his background. This is a man who was educated. I mean, clearly people have this image of the Bronte sisters being this very, you know, reclusive, hidden away from the world. These women were witnessing the most horrific aspects of life every day. Death, illness, just poverty. They were not living, you know, a prim, proper, lovely life where they baked bread and everything was, you know, they were protected from it. They knew what was going on. Emily Bronte, no woman is going to write a book like that without some experience of life. So, you know, let's be realistic. Yes, she would have come across people from all backgrounds. It just infuriates me. If you don't know, don't, you know, just, all you have to do is tap into the internet and find stuff out. You know, there's no excuse for gormlessness. Anyway, that's my rant. You'll be pleased to know, Gail. That's my rant. PR. So I'm just a bit fed up, and I've stopped replying to things because otherwise I can feel myself getting, you know, I don't want to fall out with anybody. And of course, you know, people can't know everything. But I do think it's a very narrow-minded idea that women back then were just so, you know, protected from life, and people aren't really thinking of the bigger thing. They're thinking, oh, they were authors and a vicar's daughters, and so they must have had a nice life. I mean, seriously, you know. Anyway, so are you going to go see Wuthering Heights? My friend actually went to Haworth over the weekend. She's a Bronte fan. In fact, when we grew up, as we were growing up, we used to play dress up, because we were very fortunate that we were children of the 70s and 80s, where you did go out and play because you didn't have electronics. And we used to play pretend to be the Brontes. We used to we had old net curtains and things, and we used to tuck them in and make them into long swishy skirts, and we played at being the Brontes. And my friend was either Anne or Emily, and I was always Charlotte for some reason. Probably because I was the oldest and the bossiest. But yeah, she went to Haworth and had a lovely time, and really had a lovely time, and it was just pleasant. And she went into the parsonage, and there's a lovely display on with Charlotte Bronte's, one of Charlotte Bronte's dresses at the moment. I think they call it the Thackeray dress, which is just exquisite when you see the clothing and the shoes. And obviously the bracelet with the hair from her sisters, it's believed, which Margot Robbie wore a copy of, I understand. And then there were people on the internet saying, oh, Margot Robbie's wearing the bracelet. No, it wasn't the bracelet. There's no way they were going to let her wear the bracelet, but it's a brilliant copy. But I just, when you look at the dress and the shoes and the gloves, I don't know if anybody's ever seen them actually in the flesh, but it really humbles you because she was so tiny. I think they believe Charlotte Bronte was 4'10" from her clothing. I mean, that is just minutely tiny. But it, you know, if you've been to the parsonage, you will know that there is just something so intense. And you know, when you get to stop and just realise that, you know, they walked through that door, they walked on that hallway, they were in that room, you know, they wrote in that room. Emily Bronte died on the couch that's in the room. It's mind-blowing, you know. It's one of my favourite places. I cannot recommend it enough. You know, go on the moors, stand in the graveyard. Oh, the graveyard. It's like time stops. PR. So yeah, that's my rant. I don't know. My friend is going to go see Wuthering Heights. I don't know if I'll see it. I might watch it when it's streaming on something. But I'm certainly not in any rush to go and, you know, to go see it. I did see somebody had seen it, a preview, a reviewer. You know, make your own decisions. Don't always believe what reviewers say, who said it's like a teenager's dream of a film. And I can kind of see from clips of seeing what they mean by that. But yeah, I don't know how I feel. You know, films are expressive. You know, we all have different ideas of who we'd cast in things. That's the other thing. And at the end of the day, it's brought people to not only Haworth, to the parsonage, which means money for the parsonage to keep it running. Also means that when things come up that belong to the Bronte family, you know, they can get them. They can go to auction and afford them, which is you know, what they need. So it's bringing money into Haworth, to the parsonage, to the Bronte Society. It's also getting people introduced to the books. It's encouraging people to read. It's a good thing. But when you have something that's so utterly perfect, I suppose, how do you, maybe the best thing to do is not to try and better it, but to do your own version. So I'm trying to give Emerald Fennell the benefit of the doubt, also because I do particularly, I like how she comes across, I like how she explains herself, and I absolutely loved her last offering of Saltburn, which was, I thought was superb. So yeah, you know, it's Marmite, isn't it? It's a Marmite thing. But you know, and Gail knows that I really hate it when people faff with stuff. So we'll see. I'll see what comes back from, I know my friend will love it. I know she'll love it. PR. So we'll see. See what happens. But there we go. But let me know how you feel about it, or let me know if you're a Bronte fan. If you're not everybody can be. You know, often there's a split between Jane Austen and Charlotte Bronte. And I see that quite a lot. People saying, oh, you're either an Austen or a Bronte. I mean, I'm both. I am both. I think Jane Austen is probably more, I would say, light-hearted. It's not, Jane Austen isn't as dark as the Brontes, and I think that can be the difference for a lot of people. But I don't think you could ever compare them at all. You know, I mean, Charlotte Bronte wasn't overly impressed with Jane Austen's work. She had voiced that. You know, so yeah. There's books I love of Jane Austen's and there's books I love of the Brontes. PR. The one thing I would say that I do find sad, and I kind of hope one day somebody will do it, which is I always feel Anne gets forgotten. And I don't know why. Because if you think of, you know, there's Agnes Grey, the tenant of Wildfell Hall, but, you know, she writes about domestic violence, basically. You know, when you think about it, you think what Emily Bronte was writing about, which is the sort of the abuse and the brutality of what's seen as love. But Anne Bronte was also covering topics like that. You know, Charlotte, yes, as well. You know, this is you know, think about Jane Eyre, which is, you know, the awful early days in that school and the death of her friend, and then falling in love with a man who's locked his wife upstairs because clearly she suffers with a mental illness. Not in the attic. She's not in the attic. That's the other thing. Anyway, beside the point. Well, not beside the point, but she's not in the attic. But, you know, and then we have, you know, and then we've got Rochester, who's basically lying to Jane Eyre, and he's willing to marry her knowing that his wife is alive and well. These, you know, these women have written some stuff. Really have written some stuff. Anyway, there you go. Yeah, it just, PR. So that's my Bronte rant. I do apologise if that's not your cup of tea. But, you know, it's one of my greatest loves. I kind of wish I'd done more on the Bronte front. I absolutely, it kind of feels a bit of a waste because I had such an interest from such an early age. But, of course, you don't realise these things. It's just taken me through life ranting when people have brought up the Brontes and maybe haven't known stuff. And it's not clever to put people right, you know. And it's not clever to sort of, oh, for goodness sake. But, you know, sometimes frustration takes over. Anyway, let me know how you feel. Let me know how you feel about the Brontes. Do you have a favourite Bronte? And also, we forget about Branwell because everybody looks at him as the druggie, you know, the drug addict, when clearly his heart was broken. He was clearly mentally unwell. He was clearly on drugs, which probably caused a lot of his mental health problems, hallucinations. He was living in a world that, I mean, what they saw every day, how would you not carry some of that distress? And trying and fighting to be something. But some of his work, when you look at his artwork, and he's obviously self-loathing, you know, if you paint yourself out of a painting, not very well, it has to be said. Although some people think it might have been the father that was in it, but I think it's Branwell. Just so much self-loathing there, but people forget about Branwell and his poetry. It is quite frustrating that really they were a unit of exceptional observation and exceptional imaginations as children, and how wonderful that they were allowed to experience that, you know, the worlds they created and the characters and the books, and to have a father that allowed that freedom in a time when probably, you know, it wouldn't have happened. Anyway, I'm prattling, but do let me know, are you going to go see it? You may have seen it by the time I put this up. And your thoughts on Wuthering Heights. Do you like it? Don't you like it? Do you prefer, you know, Charlotte Bronte? Do you prefer, you know, it doesn't have to be Jane Eyre. It could be Villette. It could be Shirley. Are you more a Jane Austen? You know, that kind of thing. Do you fall into the, I love Sense and Sensibility, I love Pride and Prejudice? Or are you brave enough to say, actually, they're okay, but I prefer something different? Because you kind of feel sometimes you daren't say, oh, actually, I mean, I love Pride and Prejudice and I love Sense and Sensibility. I think I prefer Sense and Sensibility over Pride and Prejudice, but Persuasion for me is the standout book of Jane Austen. It also has probably the best fictional love letter ever. That's all I'm saying. If you haven't read it, just go to the end chapter, find Wentworth's letter to Anne. Oh, I'm stopping because I'm blabbing. Makeup's done. I'm happy with it. I'm a bit tired. Betty had me up early for breakfast, as Betty does. She wakes up now and she's kind of an old lady in bulldog terms. So we work now with, you know, if she wants a breakfast, you know what? Let her have a breakfast, even if it is 5:30 in the morning. Right. Take care. Thank you for your comments and I'll see you soon.